To top it off, I love how proud this country is of their culture, their heritage, and just wanting to show me around. So I want to thank you all for being such a wonderful, wonderful nation, and I look forward to exploring more in the future. So thank you. You're welcome. And it's so good to see a few familiar faces. For us, we've been, over the past couple of years, we've been online a lot, like most people have. And to see people in person for the first time is so wonderful. Even our team here in India, I'd only met Karthik before, and we have a whole team, and I got to meet them in Bangalore last week while we're doing some corporate training. And you know what? It feels like I have known them for decades. And that's the power. If you know how to communicate well online, those relationships are still the same when you come in person, which is really, really exciting. So tonight, we continue the Speakers Institute Corporate Showcase Global Tour. We have been in Singapore, Melbourne, Bangalore, now Mumbai, and we'll head back to Australia later in the year as we continue to showcase what Speakers Institute Corporate does. Now, we inspire great leaders through solving ineffective communication and decision-making in SMEs through to Fortune 100 companies around the globe. And what we love about the most is we get to inspire great leaders through communication, leadership, well-being, client centricity, organizational design, and even mindset. So tonight you get a really good experience where we're going to be talking about the future of leading people and culture. And not only are we going to have really important conversations around what is shifting in that space through the disruption of the last couple of years, but we're also going to show you some of our curriculum and different ways that you can bring that to life in your organizations and the teams that you lead around the world or in your region or even in your small office space. But things have changed. Things have shifted. No one's culture is the same in any company anymore, and it shouldn't be. We should be evolving all the time. In New Zealand, we have this beautiful word called whakapapa. And whakapapa translates to belonging and a sense of belonging. It's like you're traveling from connecting our ancestors from the past, and like a strand of DNA intertwined comes through to the present and into the future of our next generations we have never met. And your culture is that sense of connectedness. And every single person, not only in your company and the teams you work in, but also all those people around the world that you get to connect with their clients, and how that has some sort of interaction and shift in your culture. So how can you allow that with the changes in the way people are working around the world to create that new DNA inside your company and a culture that sets up to take the past and all the beautiful things that have happened into the present, and that we can continue that legacy into the future. People nowadays, they are looking for different things. You know, we hear lots about people wanting more freedom. People want more freedom in the way they work, the way they interact with their clients or their employees, the way they use technology. People want to do things a little bit different. But with freedom, like power, comes great responsibility. Freedom has big responsibility. And I want you to think about flexible working or remote working or this hybrid working space a little bit differently. It can't be just full freedom. We need to have flexible boundaries. Because as we know, if we give people too much flexibility, they just keep going and going and going. And as human beings, we are born in a way to search for boundaries. Think about when you're a kid. You would keep trying something until you got to a point where either someone told you or you fell off your bike and you hurt yourself and you knew there was a boundary there. And people do that in the workplace too. people still want some structure, but not so tight that they feel restricted in what they do. So we've got freedom, but we also want happiness. No one just wants to work for money. People want to feel joyful and feel happy in the work that they do, in the way they live their life. The third one is purpose. People want both to understand what is the purpose of the work they're doing, the culture, the sense of belonging they're in. What's the purpose of that? But also have the opportunity to have their own sense of purpose and how that intertwines. It's like that piece of DNA, that strand of DNA. How does their DNA connect inside that DNA that's been continuing for a long time? The fourth one is collaboration. As human beings, I don't think there's any success in life that hasn't been through a collaboration. No athlete in the world has ever gone on to win Olympic medals without someone else, without a team around them. There's no successful businesses out there that has just had one person. No successful actress without someone guiding, someone being around, supporting that person. So how can we create greater collaboration spaces? Now, this is a challenge in flexible working world. How do we create more collaboration opportunities? It's our role as leaders to make sure we have that. And the fifth one, which we've already spoken about, is that sense of belonging. It is your number one trump card to any team, any community, any movement, any business. What is that sense of belonging? Why do I feel like I actually are included here, that my voice is heard, that the work that I do matters? That's what people are looking for, those 5 aspects. So the ability to be happy, have freedom, have a sense of purpose, collaborate, and that sense of belonging. And how can you intertwine that to the way you lead your company and the culture moving forward? As leaders, we need to have a relentless pursuit. Otherwise, how will we achieve our dreams? How will we create success in our business? How will we ensure that we have great impact on the world? But it's really important. We can't just be relentless on its own. We need to make sure that not only are we relentless in our pursuit of success and excellence, we need to make sure that we are not ruthless and reckless. If you think about some of the most successful people in the world, yeah, they're all relentless. But there's some other sides to them that can go into a negative space that may destroy a culture, may destroy the mental health of a human being, may impact the world in a climate point of view in a negative way. Before I unveil what each one of them really means, let's take a look at this. Who in the room enjoys either playing tennis or watching tennis? Does anyone in here play tennis? We've got a couple of people who like tennis. Does everyone know who Roger Federer is? All right, so we know who Roger Federer is. Do we know who Rafa Nadal is? Okay, we've got a few nods. I think we're warming here. Does anyone know who Novak Djokovic is? All right, excellent. Okay, now we're moving there. Some may not know, that's okay, but just come with me here a little bit. If we think about all three, they coming into 2022, they had all won 20 Grand Slam titles. Amazing period of tennis. Absolutely phenomenal for any sport, anything in the world to have 3 amazing people going at it every single time. But all 3 people were very different. Yes, they had won 20 Grand Slams. Now Nadal has 21. He's kind of got that little accolade now and he can be one above them. But if we think about it in a way, Roger Federer is very relentless, but he's not 24/7. He's relentless in ensuring that when he's on the court, when he's practicing, when he's playing, he's 100% in high performance mode. When he's not there, He's 100% in how can I recover both mentally and physically? How can I give my absolute heart and soul to my family, to my charity, to my friends? Yes, he was ruthless and reckless when he was a teenager. He used to smash the racket and he used to have verbal abuse and he was a naughty little brat. But he's changed. But if we look at Nadal, if anyone's seen him, every time he goes to serve or he's waiting there and he'll pull his shorts and he'll scratch his ear and he'll pull his hair back and he pushes the boundary every single time when it comes to the time limit. So not only is he relentless, but he's also starting to go in that ruthless space where, you know what, whether you like it or not, you have to follow what I do. You have to put up with my behavior. It's not bad behavior, you just have to put up with it. And then you get someone like Novak Djokovic. Now, he is probably one of the most high-performing athletes I've ever seen. His recovery strategies, the buses, the teams, the ice baths, the psychologists he has with him, amazing. But he is ruthless. You're coming with me no matter what, whether you like it or not. And he's also reckless. He's careless of consequences. He didn't care when he came to the Australian Open in Australia that he wasn't vaccinated. He wanted to get in there to play tennis. He didn't care whether that may affect other people, both in their thoughts, both in maybe in their health. That wasn't in his priority. So which one would you rather follow? Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal, or Novak Djokovic? Let's put it into a corporate setting here. Who knows Ingenuity? Everyone know Ingenuity? Former PepsiCo CEO, amazing ambassador for India, lived a lot over abroad. I love this about her. I'm not sure if you know. But her 20 executives, when she was CEO at PepsiCo, she's now on the board of Amazon, she went and visited every single one of their parents, went to their home to say thank you. Thank you for creating an amazing human being that is making a difference in the world. How many leaders do you know who have visited the parents of their executives? But she is relentless. She was relentless in taking PepsiCo from a struggling business to a thriving business, to shifting the way people consumed beverages, to not just being about the Pepsi brand, to exploring it and expanding it. But then you have someone like Steve Jobs, very relentless, very ruthless. Come with me, I'm going to show you the way. For most parts, he wasn't reckless in a way. He definitely was when he was earlier in his days. By the end, he'd kind of let that go. But then we have Elon Musk. What would you do with $44 billion? Would you buy Twitter? He was very relentless, but he's very ruthless and extremely reckless. He's on to his third wife. His teenage boys do not talk to him. A lot of his staff do hate him, but they still work for him. So he looks through the lens of, yes, non-stop commitment to producing success, but he takes no prisoners along the way and careless of consequences. And I want you to think about this both as an individual person. How can you be relentless in your pursuit of what you do without being ruthless or reckless in the way you look after yourself, in your health, and in the way you lead, but also in the companies that you lead, or in the teams that you lead, or the communities you are living with? How can you be relentless without being ruthless or reckless? I want to know, how can you take your gravity of your leadership and make sure that it's a gravitational pull and not a gravitational push? How can you make sure that your gravity in this world is a pulling gravity where people want to be around you, people love being part of something, they love that belonging? I want you to have a look at executive impressions. How do you show up in this world? What is your first impression? And to do that, I'm going to invite a local who has been with us for a number of years, very, very loyal, incredible human being, and she's going to take you through the next phase of executive pressions. Please welcome Anchal Jujunwala.
Thank you, Craig. What a wonderful start right there to this amazing showcase that we have. Are we all excited? Can I get a yes? Yes. Superb. Now, we are about to get into executive impressions. And I'm curious to understand, what was your first impression of when you walked inside and you met the team? What was your first impression of me, Karthik, Vinita, Craig, Sam? What was your first impression? Who would like to share? Yes. Superb. Who else would like to share? Yes. Energetic. Who else would like to share? Superb. What else? Warm welcome. Yes. Superb. Anybody else back there, that side? Smiling face. I love that. Anybody from this table? Yes. Superb. Anyone from this table? Come on. What are the first impressions? Yes. Superb. I love that. And we've worked years and years to develop this impression. It has come with practice. And most of you here are really looking professional tonight. But I would like to change that a bit. Go from professional presence to being executive in your impressions. So what I might actually do is ask all of you to stand up wherever you are. Just stand up there. Stand up and get your mobile phones. Get your mobile phones in selfie mode, as we like to call it. Get them in your selfie mode and in video recording mode. And I'm going to give you a sentence which we are going to record ourselves. What we are going to say right now is, what I have is a professional presence, but what I'm now going to have is executive impression. Have you got it? I'm going to repeat that for you. What I have is professional presence, but what I'm going to have now is executive impression. And we want to record ourselves, and then we'll watch it, and while I'm taking you through these slides, you're going to observe yourself. What did you just do there? You'll be able to watch yourselves and judge your own first impression. Are we ready to do that? Let's do it. Come on. 1, 2, 3, go. Go for it. Okay, record one more and be louder, be unapologetic that there is someone else who's also recording. Just be unapologetic. Record once again. Come on. Go for it. I love that. Take your seats. Come on, I love that. We will be watching this right at the end of our session. And then we'll see the difference. And the beauty of executive impressions is that it is true all across. What I have there on my screen right now are 2 American politicians from the history. And this was really the first ever political debate that was shown on television. And if you see closely, what's the first impression you're getting with both these politicians? The one on the left-hand side is Nixon, and the one on the right-hand side is Kennedy. And the reality is that there was a research that was done, because at that time, really, not everyone had televisions. So this same debate was aired online on a radio, where you could just hear the audio, and at the same time, there was a visual shown on television. And the research was around who voted for which president or which politician based on the medium that they were listening them on. And you'll be surprised that we had a clear distinction. Kennedy won that one, and you can see there why he won that one. He is coming across professional, he's making eye contact, whereas Nixon, he is not really making eye contact with his audience, which is right there in the camera. His body language is a little uncertain. Look at the way he's sitting, uncomfortable, clenching his fists to the chair. And if you go online and see the whole interview, you would get clarity on how important executive impressions are. It costed Nixon the whole elections. There wasn't any political debates aired online on TV for 16 years after this one because everybody got scared. They said, I need to be mindful of how am I coming across. That's how important executive impressions is. Now, is there a way to train yourselves? Absolutely, and that is what I am about to share with you. There are three aspects, and the first one there is your body. What are you doing with your body? And we will dive a little bit deeper into that. The next one there is your voice. I have interacted with most of you tonight, and I have already grabbed my first impressions of interacting with you just by listening to your voice. And the third one there is breathing. As leaders, we want to breathe low. Let's check our breathings right now, actually. Are you breathing from your chest or are you breathing from your belly? Let's have your hands right here. One hand on your chest and one hand on your belly right now. And just check whether your chest is moving or your belly is moving. And if it is your chest, you're not creating the impression that will last. It is your belly. Leaders and executives breathe low. Down. All right, let's get into body and understand a little bit of do's and don'ts. What do you need to do around your body? The first one there is swing and sway. Now, I could have been doing like this, swinging and swaying while I'm talking to you, but that's not how executives talk. The next one is too much of movement. Have you got those speakers who will constantly keep moving on the stage and then you don't know which way to look? You're just looking right and left, just what you are doing right now. So too much of movement is a strict no-no. The next one there is lack of control of your body. You don't know where your hands are. You don't know where your head is going. You don't know how balanced you are in your body. That's a strict no-no there. But what do you need to do is stand tall. Stand tall. Not necessarily in the height, but just be grounded. The next one there is less movement. As you might have seen that since I came up here on stage, I've had my movements very restricted and planned. And that's exactly what you want to do with executive impressions. The next one there is radiate confidence. Am I coming across confident to all of you? Yes? Can I get a yes if it is? Yes? Absolutely. So radiate that confidence when you are up there creating that impression. The next one there is in and around your voice. And the first one there is do not rush. Leaders are unhurried. They don't rush. They speak slow, calm, composed. And they've got that power in their voice. The next one there is use of filler words. And I am really mindful when I'm talking about this one that I don't say the words like, you know, so, as, and, like, which we generally throw in when we don't have anything else to add. Let's avoid that. Mumble is when you can't quite hear me, even if I'm loud enough, you can't understand what I'm saying. So that's a strict no-no for an executive. The next one is have variation. And you did observe that, right? When I started, I came slow, and I got excited a bit while talking to you, and now again, I'm slow and calm and composed in my voice. The next one there is measured and good pauses, and that's a great substitute for filler words. Be comfortable with the silence. Let your audience take it. Pausing is powerful, and you might want to write this down, that the more you pause, I want you to write this down. This is amazing. The more you pause, the more intelligent you come across. So be comfortable with silence there. The next one there is authority. And that's really a skill that we can all develop with the manipulation in our voice, with the projection of voice. It need not be loud, it just needs to be certain when you are communicating with your teams. You can actually grab a screenshot as well of this slide. And yes, I would now encourage all of you to stand up one more time and record yourselves being mindful of these things, the same sentence that we just did there. So everyone, stand up, bring out your mobile phones again, video mode, selfie mode, and be mindful to use your voice in variation. Modulate it. Project, radiate confidence. Speak with authority and try to create that executive impression that we just learned about. Are you ready? Do you need the sentence again? So what I have is professional presence, but what I'm now having is executive impression. Let's go. I love that. Watch this video once you're done with today and see the difference. Thank you so much, everyone.
We're now going to have a conversation between myself and I'm going to bring up a wonderful facilitator based in Bangalore. Vinita Chaldari has been working in the industry of corporate training and in major banks around the world over the last 25 plus years. Please welcome to the stage, Vinita Chaldari.
Hey, Craig.
Hey, Vinita, welcome. It's so good to see you. We were in Bangalore last week, so it's nice to have you back.
Yeah.
Now, as we deal with a shift in culture, right? Obviously, for some of you, you may have people that are working on the front lines who need to be in the office, need to be in that workplace, but then we've had people at home, or we may have had everyone at home, and the culture started to shift. For you, what has been some of the big shifts you've started to see in culture or hear about in the work that you're doing once we've now gone to this more flexible working arrangement?
It's a great question, Craig. And indeed, working in the last 2 years, especially in the COVID environment, what I've really noticed is one, whilst the organizations earlier were about strategy and numbers and performances, you suddenly see a shift where the organizations are more focused on mental wellness, mindfulness, and that's when it reminds me of Peter Drucker's famous quote where he says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Mm-hmm. You might have the best of strategy, but if you don't have culture, it's anyway a dead organization. And we have so many examples in India. The best of organizations gone down the drain because of the culture. So one of the key culture that I have been noticing, Craig, is beautifully about human-centric approach and just not about business-centric approach.
Yeah.
But can I ask you something? Now that you've been, so one is about, Craig, you have really worked with so many variety of organizations, right? So many genre. What is it that you have been noticing when culture goes down the bad track? What have you seen organizations to get it back on track?
It's a really good question, and it's tricky. We see you may have been in organizations or even being a leader yourself where you're so caught up in the work that is happening, and then all of a sudden you realize, wow, this is not quite heading in the direction I thought. Or there's a group of people that come to you and say, hey, we don't really like what's happening. or you start seeing a whole lot of people start leaving, it's pretty confronting. It's a real challenge to be in that space. And I think we're starting to learn now that it's okay to be upfront with that and take that courage to, you know what, we haven't quite got it right. And I think it's important as leaders you take that responsibility on. And it's not the responsibility to individually go and, all right, here's the new culture and start preaching that. It's going to fail every time. But how can you start having the important conversations with your people that you may not have been having previous? Start with just one conversation. Tell me, what do you like about working here? Tell me, what do you find challenging? What brings you to work? What makes you want to stay in bed and not come in today? And just have those really simple conversations, because we are dealing with human beings, not robots. They're not assets. People are not our greatest assets. People are our greatest priority. They are our greatest priority, and we must look after them. And so once we start those conversations, then it's important to then actually ask them, what sort of behaviors do you think are important for this company to go forward? What sort of ways should we be working now? Allow them to drive it. Yes, you've got to facilitate it, but don't be the one dictating it.
True. And I think over the last decade, I have been seeing this shift happening, because earlier, in most of the organizations, the culture was like top-down. Like, I tell you what I want you to do and you do it. But I see a huge paradigm shift happening, Craig, where we're listening. And like you beautifully said, about asking those simple, relevant questions to your employees as to, how are you liking working with us? What is stopping you? What can I do for you? And I think picking up those little things, that is going to make a huge difference to our culture.
Yeah, 100%. And so what sort of things can we start to look for now, right? So obviously, as we respond to a shift, should we try and pull the reins in, or do we allow it to go where it needs to go and then start using that terminology of flexible boundaries, right? How do we create those boundaries? For you, what are some of those things that you think are really important to maintain and also be really open to?
Actually, Craig, it's very beautiful, but I believe in the tango. You dance, all right? So there's no exactly a medicine or then exactly an answer. So if you're a leader, and like you rightly said about relentless, reckless in pursuit, you need to be there, observe people, and most important is pick up what is really relevant. Sometimes you need to push, sometimes you need to pull. And when you're creating a culture, it's not for the organization, but the people who are going to be working with you in the organization. So I think one of the things that is happening quite a bit across the globe is a concept of continuous learning. And that starts from you as leaders. What kind of culture are you bringing in, which is about continuous learning? And should learning only be a training session, or it can be a learning from each other, or it could just be a coffee conversation where I'm picking up some learning from you. So for me, I think your success lies in simplicity and picking up the culture of simplicity.
100%. You know what we've forgotten in this world is to pull out this thing and just ring someone. How often now do you have to wait till someone schedules a time with you? You have to reach out and send them a message first before you can actually book a time to call them.
True that.
And this is important to remember. Now, if you've got people who are working remotely, you can't just bump into them by the water cooler or at lunch.
True.
We've all shrunk our meetings online, so we don't have that time to interact following the meeting. So it's so important just to pick up the phone and say hello. If they're busy, they won't answer. It's okay. It's not a personal thing. Doesn't mean they don't like you. Just means they're busy doing good work. But make sure you take that time just to call up and say, hi, how are you? How can I be of help? How can I be of help?
Yep.
Which I think is fantastic. Yep. Vinita, thank you so much for sharing your insights. It's wonderful. We will hear from Vinita later on today. So let's give Vinita a big round of applause. Thank you for a great conversation. Coming from Hyderabad, very intelligent young man, actually he's not young anymore, has worked around the world, including being an engineer for Rio Tinto in Australia, now works as a psychologist and is one of our great facilitators. Please welcome to the stage, Karthik Madugila. There you go.
Thank you so much, Craig. So I'm here to talk about the next level. How many of us in the room want to go to the next level in our lives? It could be health, relationships, your income, or your organization's growth, or anything for that matter. We all want to go to the next level. Every single day, perhaps that's what we think about. Aage aur kya karna hai? How do I improve? How do I get better? And everything of that sort. But it is not as simple as we think generally. We think a lot, but very little happens. Yes? We make a lot of plans, but sometimes they just remain New Year resolutions and do not actually materialize. So what if there was a structured way as to how we can achieve this next level? What is the right mindset we should go with so that we can ascend that height? That's what I want to unpack today. So before I do that, please use your notes and write down what is the area in which you want to go to the next level in your life. Is it your business? Is it your career? Do you want to climb leadership ladder? Do you want the next level in your health, in your relationships, in your money? What are the areas in which you want the next level? So when it comes to the next level, the reason why in majority of cases it doesn't even materialize is because we are not clear about what exactly it should look like. And our decisions go astray. For example, if we look at something like a transition between a reckless, ruthless leader to a relentless leader, that is a simple clarity. You're very easily able to say that this is what I want to go, this is what I want to become. But how do you define the steps? How do you actually make it happen? Okay? So I want to give you a quick example on how one company lost out by not being clear on what they're supposed to do. Okay? And I bring to you Nokia. They believed phones must have a keypad. Okay? So they were serving themselves, their own ideas on what they believe. But what you actually need to be very clear is freedom from yourself. And in an organizational context, that will be freedom from what you already believe, what notions you already hold. So they served the notion that a phone must have a keypad, but they didn't define a phone as something that sits in someone's pocket and it should be as useful as possible. If they defined the phone like that, they would have come up with this. Much more useful than a keypad. So they were stuck with their own beliefs. So if you want to be clear in life, the one question you have to ask yourself whenever you are making any big or small decisions, am I making this decision to serve myself, or am I making this decision to serve my stakeholders? Who am I serving? Am I being free from myself? To be very clear on what should be the path. Sometimes that clarity is hard, like in relentless, reckless and ruthless. It's very clear there. But a decision like a keypad versus a screen phone changed the entire course of an industry. But when they were making that decision, they didn't think it was a big decision. They didn't know that it was going to become a big flop. So whenever you are making decisions, especially the small ones, please be very clear on whether you are serving yourself or whether you are serving your stakeholders. Now we get to this clarity. We are clear. Even though we are clear, still things do not happen. So some people know exactly what to do, but they never do it. Happens? Yes? We define everything, we write charts, we write goals, we write everything. Everything is clear in front of us, but we still don't do. So what's that missing piece? I'm a counselor, right? I'm a psychologist. So I was spending time with a 19-year-old boy, and he was telling me, Karthik, I know exactly what to do, but I never do it. And then I asked him just one question. If your mother were to be admitted in a hospital for a grave illness which requires a lot of funds, and you didn't have the money, would you not get out on the streets, beg, borrow, even steal, to make sure that the treatment happens? Yes, we will all do that. The reason is because we have a connection. We have connection with what we are trying to do. Sometimes we define our goals, but we don't make enough effort to connect with them, to build a relationship with these goals. And when we don't build that relationship, although we may want to make things happen, we don't generally end up making them happen. And the best relationship you can have with your goals is to surrender. In Amazon, day zero is a concept. Their entire mentality runs with day zero concept. So they are always trying to build Amazon from scratch in a way. 20 years on, still they think day zero. So they've created this one idea, and as an entire organization, they've surrendered to this one idea. Everyone in this organization is connected to this one idea. There is regular sermons, there is regular meetings, there is regular talk about day zero. So if we are clear and if we are not regularly connecting with that clarity through audio tapes, video tapes, lectures, seminars, trainings, we may know it, but we will not know it. So the second thing is to connect. If we don't connect, it will not happen. And the third most important thing is to correct. So I have the clarity, and I also make sure that I connect. So I have all the motivation in the world. But still, it happens sometimes and it doesn't happen other times. There is no consistency. That's because we are not correcting our habits. We are not correcting our habits, our internal core. Whether you have the clarity and connection, but you don't correct the being. And in the case of an organization, it will be culture. As Vinita rightly pointed out, culture will eat strategy for lunch. Okay? So if you are trying to bring a big change in an organization, are you evolving the culture? Are you correcting the culture? Yes, you got the clarity, you are making people correct, you are making people connect, but are we evolving the culture in the organization? Like a ship, if you would imagine. You are clear about the direction in which you want to go, but the rudder has to move. If just the wheel moves, nothing happens. So between this wheel, the sailorman's wheel, and the rudder, there is a lot of machinery, internal and invisible. That's culture in an organization. If that doesn't change, you will not eventually move the rudders. So changing that culture or evolving that culture is very, very important. So we clear, we connect, and then we correct. And if we do all these three things right, the result will be that you will co-create. You will co-create with this world. You will co-create with the employees in your organization. You will co-create with your partners. You will co-create with your stakeholders. And you will win the game of next level. So make sure that you're clear and you connect, you correct, and thus you co-create. Thank you so much.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to a panel, and I'm going to bring back to the stage Anchal Junjunwala. But I'm also going to bring up onto the stage my business partner, who is a phenomenal leader. Also done some pretty other amazing things in his life, which I'll share with you later on. But for now, I want you to introduce to you the CEO of the Speakers Institute Global Group of Companies, Mr. Sam Cawthorn.
All right, everyone. I'm excited for this one. I've got two CEOs sitting right there in front of me who I am going to interview for understanding people and culture. That's what our topic is all about. And I'm excited, Sam. You've been running Speakers Institute for over 2 decades now. What has been the shift that you have seen in just about last 2 years around people and culture within an organization?
Yeah, that's great. Look, what we know is that, you know, the bottom line, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of fear out there, and that's been bombarded to us by media, by government and the like. And so ultimately, a lot of our people, they're suffering. And so one of the biggest, hottest topics out there in the marketplace is still well-being. You know, it's not mental health, it's well-being. And so ultimately, you know, there has to be a real solid new strategy on how we can lift the well-being within all of our team, within all of our staff, and including even the leaders as well. If we take care of ourselves internally, then ultimately then we can then lift up the vibration of everyone else within the organisation as well.
I love that, and I'm sure that some of you might have some curious questions for both our CEOs as well. We will have an opportunity at the end of this interview. Craig, this one's for you. I am really curious to understand, because connection has become so important just in the last couple of years, where we are all online and there is really no connection that we've had in the last couple of years. And also in and around feedback, because people really engage with us, the teams engage with us when we are there up with them, giving them feedback. So how's it been for you, and what's the shift you are starting to see around connection and feedback?
Yeah, I think so. It's really important. Obviously, I talked a lot at the beginning around that sense of belonging and does the work that I do matter? And I think over many, many years, we've had the 6-month review, we've had the 12-month review, but realistically, it's 6 months and 12 months too late. Yeah, we're going to review your last 12 months, but hang on, we've done a lot since then. So how can we shift that now to actually create what we would think of as a tight feedback loop inside our organizations? And people want, I think what's important is that you give them feedback on a daily basis, in the moment. What are they doing well? People want to know, are people actually recognizing that I've done something well? It doesn't matter how small or big it is. But people also want to know how they can improve. You know, what opportunities can they do to grow, to evolve, to ensure that they can work better as a team and achieve the outcomes of the organization? What are those things they are doing well to build culture? Recognize those heroes of culture, those who are able to bring people along and keep building a really happy place for people to want to work and be a part of. And there's a great aspect, and we're starting to see a lot more of this, Sam, around, you know, the gamification and how that's kind of existing now in the workplace.
It's really interesting. Craig and I were talking literally just earlier on today. So we work with a lot of big, large Fortune 100 companies. And at the moment, we're working with a large global company, but actually working with their executive team there in Hong Kong, but also globally as well. And we're talking a little bit more about, you know, that whole area of remote connections. And this, like what we know is that the gaming industry is one of the fastest booming industries in the last 10 years. It's fascinating, yeah? But one thing that gaming does really well is that they do this gamification process, which is a 3-part process. So you can write this down, yeah? It's challenge, reward, and then recognition, which a lot of people miss. So us human beings, we love a challenge, and we lean into a challenge. But then after we go through that challenge, there has to be that reward. But what the gaming industry has done really well is that, you know, that reward can be the gems or whatever it is, but then you've also got that recognition. And the recognition is a fundamental part of a human psyche, that we want that recognition in front of our peers, and, you know, the stamp or whatever that might be. So that whole gamification, I think, is going to be key to build those connections in this remote world.
I love the discussion that is happening, and we will just have a couple of questions right after this question that I have for you, Sam. What are some strategies that you've been implementing in the last couple of years around people and culture and really the shift that has happened pre and post-COVID. So I'm curious to understand the strategies.
Yeah, so this is actually something, even I've learned a lot from Craig and his leadership. One thing I think is a really, really important thing that people can even visually see our face as well. And so that's really important. We always develop a culture where video's on. We love that idea where even if we're super busy, we have to still make time to either send a video or send an individual personalised video to individual team members or the like. So whatever that we do have within our own hands, I think the more that we can show that, the strategy of just a video connection or people see our face. One of my latest books is called People Follow People. And it's all about the future of the profile economy. How we no longer trust brands, logos, companies, organizations, governments, media, and the like. We now trust human beings. Elon Musk has 400 times more followers than Tesla.
I think he owns all the followers in the world now with Twitter.
But it's this whole point that this, your face, is your greatest asset to really build that connection. People want to visually connect with you as well. We're visual human beings. We're visual connectors. So for me, it's a great strategy.
Absolutely, and I love that. And I'm sure there are a couple of questions. Is there anybody who would like to ask a question to Sam or Craig? By show of hands, please. Yes, Brigadier Basim.
Sam, my question is about organizational culture.
Huh.
I do absolutely agree with you that that's a very fundamental thing that really helps an organization grow. Nowadays, when the startups, particularly in the Indian context, start very quickly and they grow rapidly. And when they grow rapidly, they miss out on the foundational culture. And if that gets a miss in the beginning, it is very, very challenging to correct it later. So what would you advise startups who are generally, at least I know in India, very young people who are doing it, very energetic, very much in a hurry to get results.
Yeah.
They don't have the patience to build it up properly.
Yeah.
And as a result, they mess it up in the beginning, and I get hired by some of these people to correct their organizational culture, which is so much challenging. So what would you say?
I'm going to throw this question to Craig. and the reason being is Speakers Institute Corporate have had an 800% growth just in the last 12 months. So clearly his leadership style, I think, is more in tune to answer that question. Would you mind throwing it to you?
I think obviously at all points along the path you have to connect with the human being, and I think it's important to create an environment where you understand what's going on in their lives. You slow it down enough, because if you're not connecting with the human beings throughout that process, and as you say, you grow too fast, then they're going to be all off in different places. Over the last few weeks, we've had someone who's had a divorce. We've had someone who lost a grandmother. Someone who is struggling to fit, now being a single mum, how to deal with getting kids to school and looking after them. And they're all concerned about making sure they don't offend us or put someone other way. And we're just like, no, if you don't talk to us, if we don't have these conversations, then it's affecting us. So we want to talk, we want to help you, we're there for you, we've got your back. So I think that's so important. I've seen Sam do that as as Speakers Institute grew over time, how he just keep having those conversations and reaching out. It's so easy to get caught up in the detail and in the strategy and in the growth, and we forget about human beings. And that's the number one aspect. We have to talk.
It's also based around the 3 human needs as well. Is the need to feel loved, the need to feel like that you are valued good enough, and then that third one, which Craig did mention at the start, is that need for that sense of belonging. And the more that people feel loved, they feel that they're valued, that they're good enough, they feel a sense of belonging, then there will be more of an open culture to talk about this as well.
If
Yeah,
I may
I love
be
that.
allowed, I just have another question to follow this. In the same context,
Sure.
is the future part. See now, when you start looking at the organizational culture building in the beginning, it's easy to talk about the culture that will meet the requirement of today. But today change is so rapid. How do you think you would look at the culture of a company, say 5 years later? Because one is that you evolve the culture as it goes along, but second is also to be prepared for the future.
I'll keep this one short because we have a great presentation coming up. I remember starting Speakers Institute Corporate, and one of the first things I said to Sam was, I'm going to make myself redundant every 3 months.
Yes.
As I make myself redundant as a leader every 3 months. That means that I need to be able to work on something, help build it, put a system in place, then train someone, empower them, and then move on to the next part. And empower is the big word there. And there are a couple of things that were impossible in 3 months to do and will take a bit longer. You know, it's things like business development, it's things like HR, that side of things. But there are many aspects where you need to be able to give away that control, especially in the startup. Like, people are so eager, so passionate, they want to control everything, they want to move fast, they want to be a part of everything, but you have to let go. And I think the second part is, anyone who thinks that they can keep a flat organization, good luck. Yes, you can do it in a startup, but as you grow, I can't physically manage 100 people, let alone 10,000 people. So to have a flat organizational structure, it's not going to work. And look, I'm very forward thinking, but you've still got to have that system in place where you can make sure information flows through the organization, both upwards, downwards, sideways. And if it's too flat, it's impossible to run it. As much as people were talking about it, I think it's impossible to do that way. So build your hierarchical structures in a way that information can flow, and then make yourself redundant.
I love the responses and the Q&A that just happened, and we will have questions at the end of the event as well. But thank you so much, Craig and Sam, for wonderfully summarizing what have you done just the last couple of years around people and culture.
So to take us through a great strategy now that is really important to the future of leading people and culture, speaking on emotional intelligence, please welcome back to the stage, Vinita Chaldari.
Well, thank you. All right, thanks once again, and I'm so glad to be here because this is something which is very, very close to my heart. I live, eat, breathe, sleep, EI. Do you recognize as leaders the words like compassion, sympathy, empathy, kindness? How many times in a day as leaders do you speak these words? Vis-a-vis, strategy, numbers, performance, attrition, game plan, bottom line. What is sounding closer to your heart and mind? Without a doubt, isn't it? Because we are here to run a business, we are here to prove ourselves. So it's so unfair because leaders look at me and say, oh, come on, Vanita, I love this emotion. Good to be in a book. How can I really get it to the people? They don't get this. And today, let me tell you that most of the organizations, and if you look at World Economic Forum reports for the last 3 to 4 years, continuously, including 2025, top job skills required by any organizations globally by 2025, you will find emotional intelligence. Along with critical thinking, analytical thinking, problem solving, and various things. So ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you today, irrespective of the number of years of experience you've had working or wherever you are, do you remember that one person who made a difference in your life? When you just close your eyes and think of this one leader, who comes to your mind whom you consider to be the best leader for you? Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. He's not here to listen, but I'm sure he will get it. You don't have to answer me. But actually, when you look at that leader in your heart and your mind, this ain't the leader who gave me the big bonus. This ain't the leader who gave me the big money. But this is the leader who stood by me when I was down, maybe. Or this is the leader who understood without me telling what I wanted. And this was the leader who was standing next to me and not before me. So let me quickly introduce. Thank you very much. Simple. Firstly, any journey begins from inside. Ask yourself, how are you feeling right now? May I request all of you, there's a paper pen right in front of you, and if you don't mind, can you just jot down, how are you feeling from morning 9 till now? It's almost going to be 9, so it's 12 hours. Can you jot down the number of feelings or emotions you've gone through? I'm going to give you all 30 seconds. Come on, let's go. Just write down all the emotions, feelings that you've had from morning 9 to evening 9. Just go ahead. Doesn't matter even if it is 1. Give it a try. Just give it a try. You can draw, you can write, but just do it, yeah? 12 hours, what are your feelings? I have last 10 seconds. All right, thank you, everyone. What is the number that you have? Number of feelings? Just give me the number. 4, 7, 4, 9. Woohoo! 5, 8. Anyone more than 10? Oh, come on. 12 hours, 1 feeling per hour at least. I love that. Yeah, that's consistency. You know what? I work with children quite a bit on emotion. That's my passion. I ask any of the 10-year-old to write this. 30 seconds. Tell me how you've been feeling. Can you, anyone in the room, take a guess? What would be the number of feelings they would write? No. 25. 25. They are so carefree. They know exactly what they feel, and they will tell you what you feel. So my lovely leaders present here. Self-reflection ain't about spirituality. It ain't about big meditation. It's a very simple question you can ask. How am I feeling right now? Just ask yourself. It just takes 2 seconds to ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? Before a meeting, before the conversation, before a negotiation, before influencing, ask the simple question, how am I feeling now? That's all it is. So that's self-reflection. And that leads into awareness of others. You know, I had a leader, like Craig introduced, I have around 28 years of work experience. I've been working with leaders across the globe. Interestingly, leaders who are not self-aware, they're absolutely blind to people what's happening. It's like right happening in front of them, and they're oblivious. And hence, a lot of time people lose out because they aren't conformed to what's happening. So 1, be self-aware to know what's happening, because when you're grounded, you get to see what's happening in front of you. And that leads obviously into building trust and empathy. So many times people ask, is emotionally intelligent? It's like, should I become emotional? And I say, no, not at all. So let me give you some simple 7 strategies that you can take back to really cultivate the most important skill that you can build in the coming years for yourself. Here I go. Firstly, name your feelings daily. Simple. How am I feeling today? Next is increase your joy. When I say it's not like you're continuously being happy, but finding things that makes you happy. Because when you are sorted, you really have that connect and influence for your team. Thirdly, choose positive self-regulation. Many a times when we are stressed, when we're having a bad day, we either go take a drink, either we smoke it out, or we do things which are not very conducive for our own health. And hence, as leaders, develop positive self-regulation. Do you have a mentor? Do you have a buddy? Do you have a journal where you can drain it off and feel so good about yourself? It's like shrugging off and feeling renewed and new. So find one person or find a thing that you can get out to get going. Manage your self-talk. What are you telling your brain? Do you have a name? Do you have a friend for your brain? I was watching that animation movie and he says, Silenzo Bruno. Come on, shut up. Don't give me this rubbish. So ask yourself, what is it that's telling you? What can you really do that can manage yourself? Learn to listen, my friends. I guess Sam, Craig, everyone who's been starting from now till now has only been telling one thing. Listen to yourself. Listen to what's happening. And it's just not about listening to the content. It's listening to the intent. Like I had somebody who said, how are you feeling? I'm okay. Now, if I had to not see that person, I mean, the way he said it, I knew he was absolutely not okay. And I said, whilst you did say, okay, looks like you just ain't okay, would you like to talk to me? And then open the Pandora box. We had a 1-hour conversation. And lastly, move towards relations. Invest time in friendships. Invest time in people. And that's exactly what Sam and Craig just said before I moved on. If you don't have something grounded, you're all over the place. Yeah. Last is something that I think leaders you do is focus on others. It's not just about me. Colonel Basan, you asked about the question of culture. I work with a lot of startups. And one of the things is when you start focusing on you and the startup and you forget to focus on people who are with you, that's where the whole downfall happens. So the more you start focusing on what is the vision and purpose you want your people along with you, take them along with you all the time. And that's where you go a long way.
So we're now going to have a panel discussion talking about what might the future of corporate training look like. So please put your hands together and welcome back to the stage Anshul and Kartik. So good to be in Mumbai.
Yes,
I'm
it
loving
is.
this. Loving this. So, we went from pre-COVID and, we had the standard 7-8 hour training days. We would be in a room and a lot of the times you get a bit bored because everyone just wanted to deliver as much content as possible. The facilitators went, I've got heaps of knowledge. All I'm going to do is send it to you. But we've seen such a big shift over the past couple of years where we have changed a lot in the way, the methodology we deliver corporate training. So I'm going to start with you, Kartik. You've been in the game for quite a long time. You're involved in both personal and professional development. What for you has been the biggest shift that you've noticed in corporate training over the last couple of years?
I think, Craig, the biggest shift has been the shift towards online, facilitated by COVID as well, I think. We used to believe that trainings have to be in person, they have to be high touch, we have to be in a room, there has to be lunch and lollies and everything of that sort. But when digital came over, I think it took us by a storm where someone could sit in Singapore, someone could sit in Australia, someone could sit in India, and we could have cross-cultural collaborative teams delivering content that is producing results for the stakeholders that we are serving. So suddenly we have perspectives diving in from various countries of various life experiences, which is making entire overall human experience much more richer. And nothing is more pleasurable to me when a human being can have a much richer experience, because I'm a psychologist, I guess. But this is the shift I've been seeing. You from Australia, her from Sikkim, I from Hyderabad, someone from Singapore can collaborate and deliver something online. That's like marvelous for me.
Yeah, very good. I mean, in the past, it was all about one facilitator, fill up a room or put 20 people there, and you can't really get a personal touch. And so you were talking about there that the way we approach team facilitating. So for you, Anshul, being involved in this process, as a team, what have you felt has been the biggest advantage for not only us as facilitators, but also the organizations that we work with?
I think just getting their employees to open up. They've opened up and they have flooded the chat boxes, right? When we were all online, there was no hesitation to interact, and I think that opened up a lot of doors. So that was a really nice shift. The other one, I think, for organizations is that we've removed the clutter out of training. Literally, this showcase could have been a whole one-day event, and you would have to dedicate your entire working day. But because of this shift, what we have done is we've been able to concise them. We've been able to declutter and really give you only the meaty stuff, which is relevant and important for you. So I think that's been the biggest shift, because organizations are all about productivity. And if you're getting so much of value within 2 hours or 4 hours, nothing like it.
Yeah, you touch on a great point there where, when you're in person, you get to, if you want to hear the thoughts of the room, you have to get people to speak. Now, we all know some people love holding the mic for a very long time, and there are others who won't say much. But with the power of the chat online, we were able to get the collective thoughts of the room in real time. And for us, we've gone, okay, we've shrunk a 7-8 hour program into 4 hours online, same content, better delivered, micro learning, so it's shorter segments, higher quality practice. But how do we now take that into when we go in person again? Because no one wants to be in the room anymore for 7 or 8 hours in a day. Like, companies want to make sure that they can still have their team interact with clients or interact with colleagues that day. Sure, it's less time, but they want to interact. And so, we're really looking forward to, that opportunity to blend that in. So do you want to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing in the future with regards to the in-person, with regards to collective thoughts?
Absolutely. And I think there's something that we speak at Speakers Institute Corporate, that every conversation that you're having, there are 3 parts to it: the must know, the good to know, and an interesting fact that you would want to add. And with longer programs and everything long, we would always fluff around, and the must knows would always be hidden. But when we have lesser amount of time and more productive culture, what we are going to focus on, what's the must know for my audience? Everything what we are even doing right now is centered around what is the must know for this audience. And I think that has become the greatest shift, because we've gone from being fluffy to what's the must know, and then if you have got time, only then add what's good to know about this concept, what's good to know about this whole curriculum. Yeah, so I think that's a good shift that we are starting to see, and that is really the future of in-person and online.
Yeah, very, very good. And before I open up for maybe one or two maximum questions here, you talked there in that sense when we're doing corporate training that it's not about just rolling something off the shelf. And Karthik, you've seen like the approach we're taking, which is all about the client. And for you, what have you found most crucial to that than the way that we approach those programs in corporate training?
Very good question. So as I was talking about freedom from self and serve your stakeholder rather than serve your own interests, the greatest thing that I have seen in online trainings, which are so packed, is the content segments are only like 10 minutes or 15 minutes max that you've been seeing here today. And then there is a lot of breakout rooms on Zoom. And if we would do it here, probably it's breakout groups. I don't know what we should call it. So there is a lot of there is more practice than preaching in these trainings. And I feel that our stakeholders or our participants having that practice experience within those trainings, that we are giving some high-level trainings to companies like IBM, EY, and the likes. So when we teach and when they go into these practice rooms with a facilitator and under supervision practice these principles, they are walking away at the end of the day with some solid growth that they can then carry forward into their regular day-to-day affairs. And I've got messages from some of them on LinkedIn about how they've improved that one aspect that they learned at the training and how they're going more deeper with it. So the focus has shifted away from learning a lot to learning little and going deep and implementative about it. So that's what I'm seeing, Craig.
Yeah, very, very good. Yeah, and I think it's important, you know, if you're looking from yourselves, if you either delivering internally corporate training or you're seeking someone to assist you, then it's not just about going, oh, we need a program on emotional intelligence. You know, for us, we want to know what is the culture in the organization. What wins have you had recently? What challenges are you facing? Because we need to make sure that that emotional intelligence program is actually tailored to the unique needs and the gaps inside that organization. It can't just be, let's do something for the sake of it. It must be solving an actual problem, which I think is really, really crucial. We've got time for one question, so I'd like to, yes, at the back there.
On a daily basis, there's a whole lot of noise bombarding us, okay? Whether it's ambient noise at work, we have an open plan office where people are talking on their own conference calls, so you've got to block them out. And it's created a subconscious habit where people kind of tend to switch off, you know, if they're put into training programs, if they are on a virtual program as well. And what I want to ask is, how do you solve for that with, you know, moving over to a virtual environment? How do you solve for the problem, this kind of trend that we're seeing in switching off?
Okay. Has anyone switched off tonight? Just put your hand up. Anyone switched off?
I love the question that you've asked, and I think the only way to get people to be engaging with you is using some energy shifters in the room. What we are just doing right now is shifting your energy every now and then. We are having Vinita, who is like more animated and she's full of life. And then we have Craig as an energy who is like calm and composed. And then we have a panel. And we would do the exact same thing online as well. We would ask them a question. It's called giving them a hook. You would ask them a question and ask them to respond in the chat box. And that's where you grab their attention.
Very good.
Just what I did when I came up on the stage. I asked all of you to stand up. Even if you were a bit distracted, you're seeing everyone, oh, standing up, I need to focus. What's happening? So I caught your attention there. After the presentation, again, I made you stand up. So what I did there was shifting the energy in the room and getting you to participate with me. So it's a skill, and of course, trainings can help you develop that.
It's a great question, and just to kind of wrap this up, you know, we're in a world of micro-learning. It doesn't mean the whole program is micro, you've got to do it in 10 minutes. It means you need to decide for the audience that's there what is most necessary. So remove the unnecessary, and so that every point matters, every interaction, every engagement is strategic in a way, so you know what questions you're going to ask, when you want them to put something in the chat, how you then utilize what is said in the chat. And you know, for us, even going in person, going forward, we will have up on the wall next to the slides a chat function. So in real time, we want to know the collective thoughts of the room, because otherwise we're going to be there 7-8 hours a day, because we'll open it up for lots of questions. See, I'd love to know right now what you're all thinking. And we've got the facility to do it, and we're about to implement it, because it will speed up the process, and then we can focus on, oh, I like that answer, I want to go deeper now. Or I'm going to pick on someone, and not tell them I'm picking on someone, but I will ask someone a question who's been very quiet. And I think the most important thing to finish with, and you've already heard it before, is the power of silence. We need to give people time to process what you've just said. Whether it's a different language, you need to give people time to digest. If I stand here and just keep speaking the whole time, all I'm doing is a monologue. Yep. I am just speaking to you. It's one way. What you need to do is shift to a dialogue. Doesn't mean they have to talk back, but you need to pause and give them space to answer the question or think a thought in their head. Then it becomes a dialogue. How can you shift from a monologue to a dialogue as a leader or when you're doing training? Really important. Please welcome back to the stage, Sam Cawthorn.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Craig, for that amazing intro that I wrote. Do me a favour, turn to the person next to you and just say, thanks for being the best looking person in the room. Come on, do that for me. Come on, turn to the person next to you. Thanks for being the best looking person. No, stop it. No, tell me again. No, stop it. No, tell me. Very good. So one of my books is actually all about this whole area of how to bounce forward, how to transform crisis into success. So I'm going to start with this word here. It's the word decision. The word decision comes from the Latin word decidere, incision. Scission, right, means to cut. We know that. And the word decide, the word side, suicide, pesticide. The word side means to kill. So get this, the word decision actually means to cut off and kill. I believe the world lacks leaders that make decisions. Why? Because we love keeping our options open. We love sitting on the fence. Whereas I actually now believe that through the right type of mindset, we need to make powerful decisions in order for us to look at the future in more of a clearer light and get clarity on what that might look like. A few years ago, I had clearly I've had a major accident. But just after that, I won this big award. It was the Young Australian of the Year. It was the highest honour of any Australian in the whole of the country. Thank you. So get this. They flew me through to the capital of Australia there in Canberra, and I'm about to meet the Australian Prime Minister. At the time, his name is Kevin Rudd. And I'm thinking to myself, what can I do in order for the Prime Minister to remember me? Because as you guys know, PM probably meets hundreds of people every day, as if they remember everyone that they meet. So I needed to make a decision. Yes, I'm going to do something in order for the Prime Minister to remember me. So I have lots of different prosthetic arms. Okay, so I've got one arm for playing golf. I've got another arm for like a swimming arm. I do. So it's like a little flipper. I've also got a bionic arm. It's the most advanced bionic arm in the world. It's worth $120,000 US, and it actually works on my nerve endings and on my muscles. Actually, get this, I have an app for my arm that I can control. If you guys downloaded the app, you can control my hand. Anyway, so I remember flying there to Canberra and I had my cosmetic arm on, right? So it looks exactly the same as my normal hand. So if I wore a long sleeve jacket on, which I was on that day, you can't notice at all that I had a prosthetic arm. So Glenn McGrath, Adam Gilchrist, a few other people were there, and I walked up to the Prime Minister of Australia and he looks at me, and so he comes over to me to come and say hello, but also to shake my hand. Again, he didn't notice at all that I had a prosthetic arm. As the Prime Minister of Australia came over to shake my hand, I detached my hand and my hand came off into his hand. And so, Glenn McGrath, Adam Gilchrist, they saw what was happening. They just started cracking up, laughing. The world's media came in, taking photos, everything like this. Prime Minister Kevin Rudd standing there holding my hand, yeah? And in his Australia Day speech, the Prime Minister of Australia, he said this. He said, look, today we're surrounded by very significant Australians. We have Aboriginal elders, we have community leaders, we have sports heroes. But nothing can ever beat the intro I had to Sam this morning. Because when you meet Sam, it's an extraordinary experience. Because when you shake his hand, he'll leave his hand in your hand. And in his Australia Day speech, the Prime Minister of Australia looked over to the other side of the room and he goes, And thanks, Sam, I'm still recovering from therapy today. I just wanted to give you some actual evidence that this really did happen. So as you can see, there's PM's wife, Therese, she's just lost it. There's Adam Gilchrist there in the background. And literally the Prime Minister of Australia is just handing me back my hand. It was a very funny moment, that's for sure. But I think we all have moments in our life, yeah. Some moments can be hilarious, funny, you'll never forget that. But then we have other moments in our life, and they can be quite life-defining and life-challenging. Recently, I came across a word, and the word is called this kairos. It's the Greek word for time. So contrasting to chronos or chronological time, meaning ordinary or normal time, kairos time is laden with meaning and choice. So get this, the dictionary meaning of the word kairos is this, is a moment within a moment. I love that. A particular moment in where drastic change takes place. I'll say that again. A moment within a moment. A particular moment in where drastic change takes place. My kairos moment happened a few years ago. I had a major car accident, which then left me with a very significant disability. The doctor said I'll never be able to walk ever again. It was really interesting that as I was going through my rehabilitation, there was a big sort of newspaper article that said, "The bounce back father." And you know how we've all heard of this terminology. Guys, we need to bounce back from natural disasters. We're bouncing back from terrorism. We need to bounce back from COVID. We've even heard it today where, guys, we need to bounce back. But for me, there's something fundamentally wrong, even just in and around the true understanding of that. Because if you think about it, right, like you and I, whether it's in our personal, our professional life, we have a bit of a crisis, you hit a downturn, and then we hit a place which is called rock bottom, yeah? But then we're told, come on, let's bounce back to this place that got us to the problem in the first place. Sometimes we look at the good old days, even right now, where I've even heard some people tonight to say, oh, look, things are already back to how they were. A lot of people are looking at how we can go back to where we were back in 2019, early 2020. But the reality is it's actually not about going back to where we've been. We need to learn from these tough times, learn from the crises, and then bounce forward into what we can become. So I'm going to share with you 3 really simple ways that really helped me to bounce forward through my car accident. Because ultimately, it was really, really quite interesting, just these 3 things that I've actually now shared to over 1 million people live in rooms all around the world. And I'd like you to even look at these for your own journey as well and what this might look like as you bounce forward into the second half of 2022 and beyond. Let's have a look at these. The very first one is this. Something that my surgeon said to me, he said, hey Sam, now that you've lost one of your arms, you've wrecked your leg, they even said to me initially, you'll never be able to walk ever again. Isn't it a good feeling when you prove the doctors wrong, yeah? But one thing he said, Sam, you won't be able to now rely on your physical ability for your work. You'll have to now rely on your mental capacity for you to influence and inspire others. And this was something that I absolutely really realized that in order for me to find my success, I needed to upgrade this number 1 skill set on the planet, which is communication, speaking in front of people. And so then I immersed myself in this and ultimately then I became a professional speaker. Other people then came to me and said, Sam, how did you learn it? What did you learn? And so then I started to teach other people. These 2 areas that will really help you to master communication for influence. The first one is this, is the content. These are the words that we say. So whatever framing that we're actually framing, whether it is to our relationships in our family, in our personal life, or is it in our professional life, to our boss, to our team, to our colleagues, we need to understand that getting rid of all the words that shouldn't be there and communicate in short, sharp, bite-sized chunks, the media call it sound bites, in order for you to win people's attention, is the content, what you say. But then the second area to master communication is the method how you say it. And we've already learned a lot of that today. Non-verbals, body language, tonality. One thing that we're about to launch globally is the world's first AI-powered influencer, which basically means we can now give you feedback through artificial intelligence on your filler words, your facial expressions, how often you're blinking, your gestures, your tonality, your words per minute, all through AI, which is just absolutely awesome. We've already started beta testing. So then the first thing that I learnt in order for me to bounce forward was to actually upgrade this number one skill set on the planet, mastering communication for influence. The second thing is this. Story trumps information. I like to call this story showing. Now, one thing that we do know is that our logic helps us to make sense of things. All the right information, when someone gives us facts, statistics, case study, when they give us evidence, super important to actually inform us. But just because I've been informed doesn't necessarily mean I've been influenced or I'm going to take action. You know those feelings sometimes and you think, man, it totally makes sense, but I'm not feeling it. This is why story is always going to be a fundamental foundation of how we as humans are wired. Stories have been passed through generations. We love going to the movies, love reading a novel. But I believe that there is a shift that has happened over the last few years, right? An average storyteller will inform. That's where a lot of education stops. Teachers have been taught us how to inform. A good storyteller will persuade. This is where a lot of salespeople stop, or they've taught us how to persuade others. A great storyteller will inspire. And now I love inspiration, right? I'll go to the latest Marvel movie and I'm inspired by that. But have you noticed inspiration will not necessarily lead to action? I'm inspired. Wow, that's inspiring. But am I going to take action? So there needs to be a shift. It started to happen around 10 years ago. Everyone started talking about visual storytelling. We did, didn't we? We said, let's use more images, let's use more videos, around 10 years ago. But we're still mentioning this word tell. And to be quite honest, we're sick and tired of people telling us what to do. It's true, isn't it? We're at home, our mum and dad, they tell us what to do. Then we're at school, our teachers tell us what to do. Then we're in the workplace, our boss tells us what to do. Now all of a sudden we're meant to be storytellers. I mean, nowadays that word, there's like a resilience. Don't you tell me what to do. There is, isn't there? Let me ask you. If I said, let me tell you something, compared to me saying, let me show you something, yeah? It lands totally different to the listener. I've suddenly moved from head to head, more heart to heart, which then means an excellent story shower will transform. What's transformation? It means that I've been informed, it means that I've been persuaded, it means that I've been inspired, but now I'm ready to take action. That's what transformation is. But this isn't the tipping point. The tipping point is what we like to call transcendence. It's like an out-of-body experience. It's like a sense of timelessness. I believe some of the greatest communicators and people that share stories can transcend our thinking. So then the second thing that I learned was story showing trumps information. Third thing is this: people follow me. One thing that I've also learned, and I mentioned this earlier on in the couch conversation, is that we no longer trust brands, companies, logos, organizations, media, governments. We now trust human beings. People follow people. And my encouragement to you, if you really truly want to look for ways how you can build greater influence within your families, within your working environments, is how can you literally share your own personal story, but also how can you get your face out there greater and out there in the marketplace. It's a fundamental thing for you to build greater influence with your listeners. The other day, I was sitting there on the couch and we just literally was watching a video and my face was actually up in the video. And my son, he goes, wow, Dad, look, you're famous. And the reality is he just simply saw me up on a screen. That's it. What are you doing right now to get your face out there? And by the way, you're all really good looking. But people follow people. And in this profile economy of the future, what do you need to do to get your message, get your story, get your profile out there within your workplace? And so when you speak, people want to listen. I'm going to finish off with one story. This here is a story of my brother David. He's the youngest in our family of 11. Everyone say hi, David. He's the youngest, so I'm part of 11, right? So my mum, she was born in Kolkata. Actually, they're in Kharagpur, so she's Bengali. Yeah, bolo, yeah. My father, he's born in Scotland. He's Scottish, and I was born in Australia. One of 11, big family. I'm number 9 in the family order. Try and work me out. I'm still trying to, yeah? Youngest in the family, and recently he was diagnosed with cancer. And it really saddened me seeing my younger brother go through chemo, radiation, lose all his hair, everything like that. But I suppose I was the same blood match as him, so I donated my own bone marrow to my brother. And we're all believing, David, you're going to make it through, you'll be fine. But recently he passed away, he died. And it was really sad me to say goodbye to my best mate, my younger brother. But things in our life don't always go according to plan. We can plan to go in one direction, but life situations, life circumstances will take us in a complete different direction. Yes, there's a time for trauma, sadness, grieving, but there's also a time for us to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and not bounce back, but bounce forward. So what was your kairos moment? And what was the decision that you need to make today in order for you to bounce forward for your tomorrow? Because I also believe that our greatest days are ahead of us. Why? Because the best is yet to come. Thank you very much.
Let's give a big round of applause. One thing you may notice is whether we're talking about well-being, emotional intelligence, bouncing forward, talking to our team, talking with our clients, writing something on the website, every single one of them has a story involved. The power of business storytelling, the power of being able to visualize and paint a picture in the mind of the person who is either listening or reading. As leaders, it's really important that you are able to paint a picture of the future. When we're looking at the future of leading people and culture, how are you painting a picture in their minds? How are you using business story showing? How are you ensuring that people know where they're going? Because people will not follow you unless they can clearly see it first. My encouragement is to you, is to lean in. Learn how the power of business story showing and how that can help you into painting a brighter future for leading people and culture. Tonight we've taken you through a number of different aspects. And look, there's a lot more to leading people and culture in the future, and we'd love to have those conversations with you. Love to learn from you, and I'm sure you will take that opportunity when we go outside after this and network with each other and talk about the things that you're doing. We would love to know what you are currently doing and what you may need help with. The future is bright, and it starts with you. How are you going to ensure that your gravity of leadership is a gravitational pull and not a gravitational push? How will you ensure that the training and the development and the learning that you arrange for your organization is actually making a difference? Is actually addressing a problem or a need or a gap in the culture of your organization, the way it's working, and the effectiveness of your people? On your tables, you'll see a brochure that gives you a little bit of a showcase to some of the things that we do. But as mentioned earlier, We don't just take things off the shelf, they are a guide. If there's something that interests you there, please come and have a conversation with us tonight or in the future. You know, we're here to help you. We're not here to do it for our benefit, we're here to do it for you. And so as you would have seen tonight, we're here to give you value. We're here to engage with you, to connect with you. And this is how we work with your teams if you want to take that step to how can we ensure that we create inspiring great leaders inside your organization. How can we ensure that we create a legacy inside our organizations with our people and culture for the next generations who we will never meet? This is your time.